Just yesterday, there was a massive celebration throughout the halls of the worldwide leader in woke as opening weekend of the NBA playoffs reached the largest audience in over a decade. As is the case with most butt bongo celebrations, there were plenty of hangovers today. My inside sources tell me ESPN, they ran out of preparation H within 90 minutes. Pallets of the magical cure for the woke hangover were brought in. They just could not keep up with the overwhelming demand. Needless to say, there are plenty of derailed cabooses limping through the halls of ESPN today. But perhaps this was all by design. Perhaps this was a clever move by ESPN to make sure a sizable portion of woke welfare collectors were out of commission today, because updates were released this afternoon about the upcoming layoffs at ESPN. I hesitate to call these layoffs. I prefer to call it the expiration of woke welfare. Over the next few weeks, plenty of pretend analysts and untalented media members will be forced to re-enter the workforce. No more woke welfare. No more catered cucumbers. No more unlimited woke hugs. No more free benefits like complimentary weddings at Disney World, where birthing persons who choose to identify as Mina can enter into unholy matrimony with Tina. For hundreds, possibly thousands of unlucky people, they will be losing all the benefits that come with dedicating your life to Woke United Methodist. This afternoon, the New York Post released a report claiming layoffs at ESPN will be starting as early as next week. There has been very little information released, actually, no information released as to who will be included in these layoffs. ESPN will be announcing their decisions in 3 phases, with the first phase mainly including people who work behind the scenes. Now, if ESPN were run by normal people, I would expect them to use this opportunity to eradicate the woke fungus. Unfortunately, I do not think that's going to be the case. If anything, ESPN will be firing normal people and holding on tight to their lovers of the oak tree. Case in point, the network just gave an extension last week to Marcus Spears worth millions of dollars. What? Marcus Spears? Really? Someone please explain to me the value Marcus Spears provides. Who tunes into ESPN to watch Marcus Spears? Casey, who in the hell is Marcus Spears? My point exactly. Let me tell you all you need to know about Marcus Spears. He hosts a podcast with Kendrick Perkins, the same Kendrick Perkins who thinks the NBA favors white players over black players. I will give him credit though. Marcus Spears, he is a rarity at ESPN. He is an NFL analyst that actually played in the NFL. Unlike Mina Kimes, whose only experience in the NFL was the time that she dreamed that she was married to one of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Andrew Marchand from the New York Post, he gave us a brief synopsis as to how ESPN will be handling these layoffs. Watch it for yourself.
I think there's going to be 3 rounds, from what I understand. The first round is probably going to be less talent, more normal people and executives potentially. We're speaking now, going to the podcast. I don't know exactly. I've heard different things about when they'll first come in, but then I think there'll be 2 other rounds of layoffs. And so, we talked about this before. ESPN's making choices. I wrote the other day that they just re-signed Marcus Spears to a new 4-year deal, lucrative deal, multi-million dollars overall, and per year, it's 7 figures per year. So they're making choices, and then I do think they're going to go to some other people who make big numbers and say, well, you can stay, but we're going to cut you in half. And people are going to have decisions to make on that. They might end up just leaving and getting paid their full contract. That's a tough decision to make, to have to work and make less.
First of all, did I just hear him say the first round was going to include normal people? Normal people? I didn't realize normal people worked at ESPN. I have been thinking this entire time ESPN was filled with purveyors of mythical racism and experts at creating the best grinder profile. I guess this shouldn't be all that surprising, though. I mean, God forbid the first round of layoffs include the pretend victims and the untalented. Let's get rid of all the normal people. Let's get rid of all the people who think we are a sports network. The normal people behind the scenes, that is not what is going to grab the media's attention. The media, they will be focused on the decisions ESPN makes when it comes to on-air talent. For years now, ESPN has claimed to be dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They have been focused on racial quotas, making sure the network is evenly balanced. Every time they hire one white person, 3 black people are hired. Every time they hire heterosexual Harry, 7 gay Gayersons are hired. It's going to be interesting to see who is included in these layoffs. If I'm Kendrick Perkins, I'm feeling safe. If I'm Jay Williams or Jalen Rose, I'm not worried. If I'm Bomani Jones, I'm laughing all the way to the bank. ESPN prides themselves in paying huge embarrassing failures. If I'm JJ Redick, if I'm Max Kellerman, I'm sharpening up my resume. We have seen this movie before. Woke Media Company announces a massive layoff, leaving a trail of older white men in the unemployment line. Remember last summer when Chris Light announced layoffs at CNN? Go take a look at who lost their jobs. Better yet, why don't I just show you? Check it out for yourself. Do you notice any similarities here? KC, I sure do. I can't name one of these birthing persons. Yeah, well, neither can I. But they are also lacking the melanin required to maintain employment at CNN. If you choose to identify as Don Lemon checking multiple woke boxes, CNN, they will not discontinue your woke welfare. No! Not for Donnie! They will simply move you from primetime to morning television and call it a promotion. We have also seen this exact same scenario at ESPN multiple times. A couple of years ago, they announced layoffs. Listen to the names that were included. Trent Dilfer, Trey Wingo, Kenny Mayne, Ed Werder, Danny Cannell, Jay Crawford, Brett McMurphy, Andy Katz. Hey, Max Kellerman, are you starting to understand now why I said you should be worried? Look, it does not matter to me the race of people that ESPN decides to lay off. I don't care. I mean, seriously, I hate to see anyone lose their jobs. To be honest with you, though, if you lose your job at ESPN, I would consider it a blessing in disguise. But don't tell me you're a network dedicated to diversity when every time you have a massive round of layoffs, there is absolutely nothing diverse about it. If I had to guess, I would imagine Sam Ponder could be included in these layoffs. Sam Ponder usually exercises her right to remain silent when it comes to political and social issues. Until today. Earlier today, she tweeted her support for Riley Gaines in her fight to keep dudes like Leah Thomas out of women's sports. According to the New York Post, ESPN will be giving an option to some of the higher paid on-air talent. We have a sweet deal for you. You can continue working here and take a 50% pay cut, or we will honor your contract and strongly enforce the non-compete clause, meaning you'll be off television for years and ultimately forgotten. Well, that is one hell of a deal. Sign me up. I don't know about you guys, but it's always been my dream to work the same amount of hours while receiving half the money. Now, some of you may think ESPN honoring their full contracts is a noble gesture. In the short term, I suppose it is, at least financially. But long term, that is a death sentence for a media career. Sure, you are collecting free mailbox money for a little while, but you're off television for a long period of time. This same thing happened to Brett McMurphy when he was laid off from ESPN in 2017. He went from appearing on SportsCenter to now working for something called the Action Network. Last year, Disney announced they were splitting away from ESPN, the worldwide leader in woke. They will now function as its own separate entity. For the first time, ESPN will be responsible for releasing their own financial reports. Judging by the amount of layoffs we have seen in recent years, I don't imagine it's going to be pretty. I'll tell you what I think's going on here. I'll tell you why I think ESPN is cutting millions of dollars in salaries. Over the last 10 years, ESPN's lost 25, maybe 30 million cable and satellite subscribers. Now, ESPN, they charge $10 per subscriber every month. Do the math. At minimum, that is a $3 billion loss in revenue every year. Last year, ESPN wanted to bid for the rights to NFL Sunday Ticket. They ended up pulling out of the negotiations. Why? They couldn't afford it. They lost the Big Ten to CBS. They have never had the rights to March Madness, at least in my lifetime. Now, sure, they've got the NHL and one night every week of Major League Baseball, but that is not enough to keep ESPN afloat. They have the SEC, the College Football Playoff, which carries them for maybe about 4 months. Now, you got to remember, ESPN, they produce very little original programming. Well, KC, they produce live debate shows like Woke Take. They have NFL Live, Around the Horn, and PTI. Yeah, but you can't replay those shows. You get one airing out of them, then they're completely useless. There is not enough 30 for 30 documentaries. There's not enough outside the lines to provide enough programming to fill ESPN's airwaves. Right now, the only thing saving ESPN is the NBA, and that deal is up for renewal, which is why I believe we are seeing these layoffs from ESPN, coupled with the fact that Disney is forcing them to operate as their own separate entity. In other words, money is tight. Adam Silver wants $75 billion for the NBA's next deal. There's a lot of competition for it too. NBC wants the NBA, multiple streaming services are entering into negotiations with the league. ESPN cannot afford to lose the NBA. I think they are freeing up this money to make sure they're in a financial situation where they can't be outbid. When you think about it, ESPN, they're kind of in a lose-lose here. The NBA is coming off one of the least watched regular seasons in league history. It ain't worth $75 billion. The problem is, ESPN doesn't have any leverage. They are in no position to tell the NBA what they're worth because they likely will cease to exist without the league. But give me your thoughts. ESPN layoffs set to begin next week. Who are some big names you expect to see laid off? Who would you like to see ESPN fire here? I know who would be at the top of my list, Bomani Jones. But you let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com. KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.